the guys love him because he's confident, calm, and very smart. Well, they're not. He's not talking about me, although most of those things are true. I don't know about the calm part. That's Kirby Smart talking about the relationship his starting quarterback Carson Beck has with the rest of his team. Um, Look, Carson is coming into this thing as it's setting up really well for Carson Beck. This could be a very good season, and he won't have the the on roller coasters you got like that slow build up. If you ever went to Six Flags on the Scream Machine, I know that's probably dating me for some of y'all, but it was an old wooden roller coaster in Cobb County, and it would just tick its way up to the top, and then once it rolled down that hill, it was on. It's what that kind of felt like last year in the first few games for Carson Beck was. Let's let this guy get his feet wet a little bit, and then as you saw from something we talked about the other day, Mike Bobo basically I think said to Kirby at one point, let the guy go, do his thing, and we saw that. We saw how dangerous he was when he was the guy, and one thing that's going to happen here in the near future is, we're going to know definitively. I think we have a very good idea already. What is it going to be like for Carson to be the primary weapon in this offense? Now, that assumes he was not the primary weapon this past year, which I'm not sure I can really say that. I think that in the case of Carson Beck, with Ladd being hurt and Brock Bowers being hurt and the lack of running backs at the beginning of the season, we just didn't get to see Georgia come out full throttle like they did in 22. Like in 22 against Oregon, we talk about this a lot. When did you know when Georgia would, we put it this way. When did you know Georgia was going to win the national championship in 21 and 22? In 2021, for me, it was the first quarter of the Vanderbilt game, and it was nasty. I mean, they were flying up and down the field on Vanderbilt. I think they scored 35 points in the first quarter. If it wasn't 38-5, it was 28, but I think it was 35. And it was just like, because I knew how good the defense was. But the way they were scoring on offense was just not fair. In 22, getting back to the point about Carson Beck this past season in 23, in 22, it was game one. It was the Oregon game. It wasn't just that they beat Oregon. Like, I was kind of thinking they beat them by like 18, 20 points, something like that. By the end of the second quarter, there was no question not only who was going to win the game, but that, like, how bad was this going to be? And the answer was really, really bad. 48-3, 49-3, whatever it was. There are moments in time when Georgia just says, to hell with it, we're making a statement. The Oregon game in 22 was one of those games. We didn't get that in 23 with Beck. And there's a few reasons why. A, they weren't playing Oregon. They were not playing Clemson. They were not playing, South Carolina in the first two games. They had gimme games. They were at home. B, I think this is more important, there was just no stability on the offensive side of the ball as it relates to injuries. This Georgia team had a very hard time staying healthy at running back specifically, and then receiver. I mean, they didn't have McConkey for however long it was at the beginning of the season. I think he didn't really start until the Auburn game. Start playing a fair amount, and it's just like after a while that's challenging to deal with if you're them. But this year you're right out of the gate against Clemson. I mean, you're right out of the gate against Clemson, so you'd better be ready to party right away because their defense is pretty good. I was talking about 22. I've got Double Dawgs. A few of these I just ordered. I don't have a handful. I have a couple of Stetson Bennett signed remaining of Double Dawgs. And when these are gone, they're gone. If you just want Double Dawgs, that link is down below as well. It is the inside look at the 2022. Oh, let's see. Let me read the cover. How Kirby Smart's Dogs Reach Perfection in 2022. Forward by Jeff Foxworthy, famous comedian and every now and then Dog Post contributor. Sometimes football games make your stomach hurt, and Georgia Ohio State was one of them. You got that right. That was a heck of a game. And can Carson perform in those moments? Okay, we don't know. I think the answer to that is yes. But we don't know if he can perform in an Ohio State Georgia Peach Bowl kind of way. With that said, there was evidence that Stetson could do it going into that game, but that game really pushed Georgia in a way that I try to think before I talk. I try, but in a way, that game was more breathtaking than Georgia Bama in 21. I would say Ohio State Georgia was more breathtaking than that game, than the Keely Ringo game. More breathtaking because they were flying up and down the field on each other. And obviously the ending was even more dramatic than the Keely Ringo moment. But can Carson perform at a high level in those moments? I think the answer is yes. It's really going to be much more on him than it has been in the past because because he's got a lot of the burden on him now completely. I mean, it's not like Brock Bowers can come save the day or whatever in the name of whatever. That's not there. But when Kirby talks about, let me get the quote right. He talks about how the guys love him because he's confident, calm, and very smart. He is very smart. He is a very, very smart person. And I think that calm is probably, he's all those things. I think people make the mistake perhaps of his demeanor, which is calm and chilled out, as negative as a negative thing. I've never necessarily felt like that about being calm before an athletic event. I think that's a good way to be in many ways because you're just clearing your mind. You're not going to let your emotions or the environment dictate to how you are going to perform. You're going to perform how you're going to perform. That's easier said than done. I will admit that, but I like calm, quiet, because you can be perfectly intense in that state of mind. And I think for Carson Beck, 2024 is a pivotal season for a lot of different reasons. I mean, it made it much easier because of NIL to come back. But he has positioned himself. Now, NIL is good money, but nothing compared to the NFL and nothing compared to what he has the capability of doing in 12 months from now, which is perhaps going number one overall. Now, will he? I mean, I'm skeptical of that because I think you should be skeptical of any player going number one overall. But because he plays quarterback, because he's, I don't know how raw he is, but he's not played 20 games as a starter in college football. There's still question marks about him. So you could say he's got some development to do for sure. But, you're going into a season with the number one team in the country, with the most, I think you can make the case he's the most gifted player at his position in the SEC. But there are some other really good players at their position. He's the best quarterback coming back. Is he the best quarterback in the country coming back? I mean, some people think so. But, Quinn Ewers is really good. I mean, Jackson Dart's really good in the SEC. So it's not like he's just going to run away with it. But what you want to see from Carson and what the confidence, calm, and very smart will get you, it should be easy plays sometimes. You want easy, open passes. Now, that's what you want. You're not always going to get that, but you want that as many times as possible. You want layups. We're not trying to shoot a bunch of threes. So, that you can hit a three doesn't mean you need to be shooting it all the time. So that's what I want to see from Carson Beck is, what will this final year be like for him? How is he going to navigate an increasingly changing landscape of college football where he's been there for 5 years? Carson Beck on the path.